determined ends and through psychological manipulations. Footnote 14, Laswell, Harold D. in et al., Jacks, Propaganda, The Formation of Men's Attitudes. New York, Random House, 1965, pages 11 to 12. Propaganda, when it is recognized as such, and anything produced by a PSYOP unit is so recognized, is automatically assumed to be a lie or at least a distortion of the truth. Therefore it works only to the extent that a militarily pressed enemy is willing to do what we want him to. It does not work because we have convinced him to see the truth as we see it. If his conclusions chapter to the Army's exhausted 1976 case study of PSYOP techniques, L. John Martin affirms this coldly and bluntly. What this all boils down to is that if our persuasive communication ends up with a near positive effect, we must attribute it to luck, not science. The effectiveness of propaganda may be even less predictable and controllable than the effectiveness of mere persuasive communication. Footnote 15, Martin, L. John, Effectiveness of International Propaganda in Department of the Army Pamphlet 525, 7-2 The Art and Science of Psychological Operations, Case Studies of Military Application, Volume 2. Washington, D.C., American Institutes for Research, 1976, page 1020. Correspondingly, propagandists are assumed to be liars and hypocrites, willing to paint anything attractive colors to do the gullible. As Jacques Ellul puts it, the propagandist is not, and cannot be, a believer. Moreover, he cannot believe in the ideology he must use in his propaganda. He is merely a man at the service of a party, the state, or some other organization, and his task is to ensure the efficiency of that organization. If the propagandist has any political conviction, he must put it aside in order to be able to use some popular mass ideology. He cannot even share that ideology, for he must use it as an object and manipulate it without the respect that he would have for it if he believed in it. He quickly acquires contempt for these popular images and beliefs. Footnote 16, Ellul, Jacques, Propaganda, The Formation of Men's Attitudes. New York, Random House, 1965, pages 196-197. Unlike PSYOP, Mindwar has nothing to do with deception or even with selected and therefore misleading truth. Rather, it states a whole truth that, if it does not now exist, will be forced into existence by the will of the United States. The examples of Kennedy's ultimatum to Khrushchev during the Cuban Missile Crisis and Hitler's stance at Munich might be cited. The Mindwar message does not have to fit conditions of abstract credibility as do PSYOP themes. Its source makes it credible. As Ligby once said, the terror of the Roman name will be such that the world shall know that, once a Roman army has laid siege to a city, nothing will move it, not the rigors or winter nor the weariness of months and years, that it knows no end but victory, and is ready, if a swift and sudden stroke will not serve, to preserve until that victory is achieved. Footnote 17, Keller, Werner, The Etruscans. New York, Alfred A. Knopf, 1974, page 262. Unlike a lull cynical propagandist, the Mindwar operative must know that he speaks the truth, and he must be personally committed to it. What he says is only a part of Mindwar. The rest, and the test of its effectiveness, lies in the conviction he projects to his audience, in the rapport he establishes with it. And this is nothing that can be easily faked, if in fact it can be faked at all. Rapport, which the Comprehensive Dictionary of Psychological and Psychoanalytical Terms defines as unconstrained relations of mutual confidence, approaches the subliminal. Some researchers have suggested that it is itself a subconscious and perhaps even E.S.P. based accent to an overt exchange of information. Why does one believe one television newsman more than another, even though both may report the same headlines? The answer is that there is rapport in the former case, and it is a rapport which has been recognized and cultivated by the most successful broadcasters. We have covered the statement of inevitable truth and the conviction behind that statement. These are qualities of the Mindwar operative himself. The recipient of the statement will judge such messages not only by his conscious understanding of them, but also by the mental conditions under which he receives them. The theory behind brainwashing was that physical torture and deprivation would weaken the mind's resistance to suggestion, and this was true to a point. But in the long run, brainwashing does not work. because intelligent minds later realize their suggestibility under such conditions and therefore discount impressions and options inculcated accordingly. Footnote 18, cf. John Marks, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. New York Times Books, 1979. For the mind to believe in its own decisions, it must feel that it made those decisions without coercion. Coercive measures used by the operative, consequently, must not be detectable by ordinary means. There is no need to resort to mind-weakening drugs such as those explored by the CIA. In fact, the exposure of a single such method would do unacceptable damage to Mindwar's reputation for truth. Existing PSYOP identifies purely sociological factors which suggest appropriate idioms for messages. Doctrine in this area is highly developed, and the task is basically one of assembling and maintaining individuals and teams with enough expertise and experience to apply the doctrine effectively. This, however, is only the sociological dimension of target receptiveness measures. There are some purely natural conditions under which minds may become more or less receptive to ideas, and Mindwar should take full advantage of such phenomena as atmospheric electromagnetic activity. Footnote 19. Atmospheric electromagnetic EM activity. The human body communicates internally by EM and electrochemical impulses. The EM field displayed in Kirlian photographs, the effectiveness of acupuncture, and the body's physical responses to various types of EM radiation, X-rays, infrared radiation, visible light spectrum, etc. are all examples of human sensitivity to EM forces and fields. Atmospheric EM activity is regularly altered by such phenomena as sunspot eruptions and gravitational stresses which distort the Earth's magnetic field. Under varying external EM conditions, humans are more or less disposed to the consideration of new ideas. Mindwar should be timed accordingly. Per drive L.J. Rabbits. The electromagnetic field constructs add fuel to the assumption unifying living matter harmoniously with the operations of nature, the expression of an electromagnetic field no less than non-living systems, and that as points on spectrums, these two entities may at last take their positions in the organization of the universe in the way both explicable and rational attainable theory has been provided for emergence of the nervous system, developing not from functional demands, but instead deriving as a result of dynamic forces imposed on cell groups by the total field pattern. Living matter has a definition of state based on relativity field physics, through which it has been possible to detect a measurable property of total state functions. Rabbits, state, function, including hypnotic states in Journal of American Society of Psychosomatic Dentistry and Medicine, Volume 17, Number 4, 1970. Air ionization. Footnote 20. Ionization of the air. An abundance of negative condensation nuclei air ions in ingested air enhances alertness and exhilaration, while an excess of positive ions enhances drowsiness and depression. Calculation of the ionic balance of a target audience's atmospheric environment will be correspondingly useful. Again, this is a naturally occurrent condition, caused by such varying agents as solar ultraviolet light, lightning, and rapidly moving water, rather than one which must be artificially created. Detonation of nuclear weapons, however, will alter atmospheric ionization levels. Cf. Soik, Fred and Edmonds, Alan, The Iron Effect. New York, B.P. Dutton, 1977. And extremely low frequency waves. Footnote 21. Extremely low frequency ELF waves. ELF waves up to 100 Hz are once more naturally occurrent, but they can also be produced artificially, such as for the Navy's Project Sanguine for submarine communication. B.L.F. waves are not normally noticed by the unaided senses, yet their resonant effect upon the human body has been connected to both physiological disorders and emotional distortion. Infrasound vibration up to 20 Hz can subliminally influence brain activity to align itself to delta, theta, alpha, or beta wave patterns, inclining an audience toward everything from alertness to passivity. Infrasound could be used tactically, as E.L.F. waves endure for great distances, and it could be used in conjunction with media broadcasts as well. See Playfair, Guy L. and Hill, Scott, The Cycles of Heaven. New York, St. Martin's Press, 1978, pages 130140. At the root of any decision to institute Mindwar in the U.S. defense establishment is a very simple question: do we wish to win the next war in which we choose to become involved? And do we wish to do so with minimum loss of human life, at minimum expense, and in the least amount of time? If the answer is yes, then mind war is a necessity. If we wish to trade that kind of victory for more American lives, economic disaster, and negotiated stalemates, then mind war is inappropriate, and if used superficially will actually contribute to our defeat. In mind war there is no substitute for victory. Footnote 22, the May 2003 after General of the Army Douglas MacArthur's famous aphorism, in war there is no substitute for victory.